Hello from New York. I'd like to thank everyone who has subscribed and shown likes and shared these videos. It means a lot to me. I hope that the message that I'm getting through is clear. In your mind, communication applies to a number of philosophies. Apply to a lot of things. I'm trying to present those things. A lot of insights. So I hope you'll go on this journey with me, and it's also good to be used therapeutically too. For PTSD, CPTSD, etc. So, in the right hands, it can be a very useful thing. There's levels of its application, personal. Having a trainer who's been there, experienced it, and having a professional therapist. Yeah. So, done that way. There's so many things come to my mind with this. There are group activities that can be done. I'll go into that at another time. Got a lot of concerns going on now. I do want to thank all of the Linux channel creators and the wonderful donations of time of doctors and YouTube presenting so many different perspectives. Star Talk, Neil was branching out to his good sense into a number of areas, and like him, hate him. Bill Maher is really funny, and I like it. But anyway, today's topic is it's the boomer video. Not professional deal, but content I hope is useful. IMC, comfort zone, empathetic communication, democracy, MAGA, and religious wars. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is selfishness and empathy. We need both. We need, self-concern. We need empathy, which is kind of deep sharing and of another person's perspectives and situation, even your own at different times and from different perspectives. That's the inner mind communication practice, individual practice. These two things exist in tension. So you have to be somewhat concerned about yourself. There are things that, because of the survival nature of who we are, self-concern is overwhelmed by forces, drives for the preservation of our species. Now they call those people heroes. Shout out to the police and fire and emergency workers, ambulance drivers, IMCs. Yeah, yeah, and all of those folks that are working so hard produce luxuries. That's very important. Well, that's an example of empathy, but like I say, in between the selfishness and the forms of empathy, uh, the forms of empathy, creative, objective, and passionate, these things draw us out of ourselves. The objectivity, the passion, and the creativity draw us out of ourselves, away from direct self-concern to expanded even sense of self. That is, and we exist in a comfort zone. That means everything's going, well enough. There's a balance there between how much objectivity, compassion, and creativity we can. So, that balance there that helps us to survive is, impacted by trauma. Trauma is an attack on our comfort zone, and it leads us to be much more self-concerned, more selfish, and it takes the application of these sympathies to help to cure that condition, to bring us into a more fully functioning, expanded sense of comfort again within society. This relates to democracy. One, two, 3 points there. Democracy, healthy democracy, is involves an expanded sense of self. It isn't just born into us; it's something we learn and adapt to. Where there's greater connection to objectivity, creativity, and compassion in our comfort zone. The better the democracy works, the healthier that democracy is. Talked about that. There's a balance between these types of empathy and the dramatic survival core society or oneself, which the person, I call that the kid, and so there's this balance between government, which is more about objectivity, and church is more about compassion. The media, which is more about creativity. How expanded are we in these areas? These things all impact trade and trading partners. We're all trading partners. Even little kids, in a way. They're trading something of value to us, and we are nurturing them. So there's a sense of time involved with this bubble of comfort. It's nothing more tragic than losing your sense of a safer future for yourself connection with your loved ones. It's horrible. It's almost, I would say that would take a long time to heal, and I would say it probably never completely heal. But yeah, there's impacts from trauma that sometimes it's very long term, sometimes shorter. Um, so their goal in a healthy democracy is to keep the trauma down, and to expand our sense of comfort, our empathetic perspectives, so and that means we have an expanded sense of self, because in empathy you're identifying with others, and so with the universe, understanding your environment. It's the connection of self and your environment. All of this is part of the comfort zone. Now, going into MAGA and religious wars is a conflict created because you have where you have the impact of trauma, you have a distance in yourself from basic needs that were either generated by that or blocked by those traumas, as in CPTSD. These impacts cause us to live distance. The forces of these traumas is like a force hitting a ball, and the force of that expands and distances itself, but it still has meaning in connection to that impact. So, in other words, you can trace it back. So this kind of impact in the human brain and how we cope with trauma means that we symbolize and generalize things in order to find a new comfort zone, because the original situation was too helpless. You can't live in a helpless situation. Helplessness is overwhelming. Then you have this, it's because of trauma, and you have this big impact, and you have this force. Talked before about, the fact that you're hit when you're more vulnerable, when you have no language, and it's tougher. It's a bigger impact, and it kind of sets the course for trauma in how our lives play out. The great Arthur Jenoff wrote a book, Life Before Birth. I believe it was Life Before Birth: The Hidden Script That Rules Our Lives. There's impacts that, even, trauma can impact us through how the genes our genetic code is expressed. It's that kind of force, and it can, the generations, that impact is felt in the offspring. So you're dealing with that, but you're also dealing with traumatic experiences within the womb, and from birth. Um, and this is poetry language, so it can impact you. For instance, if it's General City, if you were totally helpless, and just before you gave up trying, you were born. Wow, that has an impact on how you cope with life afterwards. If you're struggling, and in that struggle, you're full. That leads to people who, they just keep going until they succeed, by golly. But if you succeed, if you're born, after you quit struggling, you're the kind of person that, there's a tendency for the person to struggle and give up. Because that was the comfort zone, that was the success, the survival memory. I don't want to go too deep here. Read his book. Yeah, he's way over man there, You professionals that read his book, okay? It's a really good book. And go to the site, theprimalmind.com. Brilliant. Two guys that I really look up to is Peter Pronsos, a political scientist, professor of political science, and Bruce Wilson, a magnificent medical science writer. So I always put that in at the end. And also the clinic still functioning. The Janop's Understandings in California. Provide a link to that too at the end of my videos nowadays. And okay, religious wars. Okay, back to that. You have different sets of symbolic comfort. These things can conflict. When they do, there's this panic created. There's this anxiety because you're breaking down very quickly, in order to accept this other group symbolic comfort zone. You have to give up your own. If you are saved by going clockwise around the mulberry bush, and then you run into people who are saved by going counterclockwise, well, that silly thing is a big deal. It's a big deal. Why? Because it breaks down that symbolic covering that provides a comfort zone. And so they're coming out of their comfort zone. What does that do? It leads to more selfishness and more defensiveness, which is what you see with the MAGA people. And yeah. And you wonder, how in the conspiracy theories, that is actually within help the people symbolically have a symbolic comfort zone. There's a conspiracy theory that is a fear that they feel they can cope with. We can vote out those Democrats who are secretly reptiles for the human race. And it gets almost psychotic there. It refrain from making diagnoses. But what do you think? But yeah, some conspiracy theories are part of it. And if you run into people who don't believe in that and they try to challenge that, then you get very, very nervous and defensive. The reason someone would fall for stuff like that is like this is something that Jano called compounding. Where if you're hurt really bad in your life before birth, then and then everything else is good. You don't have such a lot of compounding, and that script is a little bit mollified. You're going to survive better as an adult. But let's suppose that there's a compounding, that giving up thing is something in the family, and they gave up on you. That's compounding, and that makes it more severe. The people that most people who suffer from PTSD in war are people who also had earlier trauma, ACEs, for instance, CPTSD, and that's compounding. It's Geno's principle of compounding. I wish people would pay more attention to what Dr. Geno had to say. He's a brilliant man. But he crossed the line with the comfort zone of the people who have their wonderful therapies. Okay. Symbolic therapy, if you return people to some kind of comfort zone, you can have religious therapists. And that can produce quick and immediate results, and then, therefore, that's a great therapy. Well, you really haven't. That, to me, that's not therapy. That's well, it is in a way, but it doesn't get to the core of the issue. And the stress comes back, and all that inner hurt and trauma just floats again. So it explodes in the extreme. Try not to be too dramatic and verbose here. But it's hard not to, seeing people, storm the Capitol. Pretty dramatic. And it's sick. Religious wars, we talked about that just a second ago. And MAGA. So their tendency toward conspiracy theories, which is what excited them so much to, and they felt they were patriots. How does that relate to the racism that you see? Well, there's a tendency and influence to identify early with a certain range of people, and so who they identify with, well, that's their comfort zone, and the people that the child feels a connection to, they can go around and do a bad thing, and there's excuses, for them. Not for the others, not for those they haven't identified with. Well, that can be very bad for the person that was not identified with. And the comfort zone, that's a comfort zone. Who you identify with, it's tribal. and it's an inborn kind of thing, and everything works. Healthy democracy works against it. So, uh, but there's a lot of tribalism, which one manifestation of that is racism. They are other. They are not us. You gotta be careful about, you understand that people are just sick, but, then you can have more love for them. And it's saying, yeah, they did a terrible thing, but, you know, you know why. And there are ways to cope with it. That goes into criminality. You know, the great mystic Jesus said, I was in prison and visited, I believe it was, correct me if I'm wrong. I was hungry and you fed me, and thirsty and you gave me to drink. Yeah. So our attitude toward criminalism, as Jesus said, the sinners, why are you sitting amongst all these people who are, abusing drink and, obese and whatever else that was wrong with. So, he says that with the healthy, you don't need a physician. It's the sick, Once you understand that, a lot of what plagues people and what causes them to do crime and so on, it's connected to this kind of illness, then, you're more compassionate. A healthier democracy would mean a democracy where there's less punishment. I've talked about that, going back to the health of your democracy. Uh, Punishing attitudes and the health of the individual. Punishing attitudes is the demand for people to change without the process required to do so. And it's mean spirited, It's attack mode. You're not going to help people that are, and I refer to lack of empathy and so on as spirituality. Someone who's spiritually sick, by attacking them, and even Bill Maher talked about this, don't be mean to people who are in MAGA or whatever, help them out, Try to expand their comfort zone a little bit. And help them to do that and understand that it hurts to expand their comfort zone. Okay? That's the key here. It took me a long time to say that, right? Yeah, using Cano's idea of pain. Yeah, it hurts to expand your comfort zone. It's another reason why self-help is more limited in terms of dealing with deep issues, trauma. You need a little help, even in your practice, using your imagination and other things, techniques in mind communication. The ability to use these things is from outside, from the good things in your life, That's your ego strength, sometimes people would call it. This all has to be taken into account. Longevity of a therapeutic intervention and so on. You have to have a little bit of force involved, and a little impetus to change. People are just going to stay in that terminal or sick comfort zone. That means misfortune. Your symbolic stuff not working for you is, in some ways, can be a benefit and a blessing. Because it takes you on the road to healing. We need to be more about healing and less about punishment. Europe gets that. Not the only area that I know that gets that so well. Certainly other places, including the United States, you would think about that, Canada remains more connected to, a little kinder than the United States, which had a big separation. We didn't grow, let's say, better journey. So that, there's a big problem there. Yeah, a lot of times there's an overreaction to and the blaming of people. The balance is off, Big trauma, you blame the rich people, you blame the poor people, No, that's definitely the pot calling the kettle black. There's hurt in ourselves. The more we're able to cope with that, deal with that, the more we're able to accept that others are welcome. That's a very important point in terms of spiritual growth. And, well, I've gone on and on. The important thing is having your own conversations and with one another in the comments. So please comment, share, like if you like, dislike if you dislike. And, do subscribe. I think it's worthwhile. If I can bring in some of the important people that I know that could add to this conversation in this channel, then it will improve. That'll be the major improvement next if I can get it. But believe me, there are people out there who understand what I'm talking about. And I would imagine that would understand and understand more. Peter Brown says we understand more, especially in terms of how governance, politics should go. Anyway, and Robert Reich, please, he's great. He knows how to tweak capitalism in a more positive way, expanding from the middle class out, because that only makes sense, because if the comfort zone is there, then there's an outreach to both the poor and the wealthy. And there's an appreciation of possible if you have a thriving middle class. So things for the poor get better, and things for the rich actually get better too, because they're held in check from their just being greedy and buying more yachts, and pulled into the trade in a positive way. Yeah. We don't need to be hating each other, folks. We need more love. those Beatles sang, you know, all you ever need is love. So, as I like to say at the end of my videos, word namaste. Not because I'm religious, but in that way anyway. Or anyway, in the typical sense. But the word is a wonderful word, and it honors all of the potential. It's a greeting that honors both the greeter and the one being greeted. It's what connects us to ourselves and to our universe and to love and to all the potential for spiritual growth that lives in each of us. It's an honoring greeter and the greeted. An honoring of that space in the greeter, focused on the one being greeted, and that same space, having faith with that same space in that other person. And I believe it is. Call that a religion, I suppose. Anyway, namaste. All that's good in life, follow you. Come on your shoe. And have a wonderful day and a wonderful new year. And meditate more. What's important. Adios. Parting is such sweet sorrow.